internet. I'm here to haul some books because I have too many books to haul and it's the end of spring, so I'm calling it time. I have 32 books to haul today, which is a lot, but I have read 9 of them, so that makes it better, right? Anyway, to keep this video from being 10 years long, let's just jump into the haul. I'm probably not going to give too much of an explanation because there are so many books, so yeah. The very first book I have to haul is one that I got from McKays. You're going to find a lot of these are from McKays, which, if you don't know, which a lot of you probably don't, is a local used bookstore here in Nashville. I think there are only like a few that exist, but I go there a lot. This first one is from one of those mini trips, and that is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. This is an adult fantasy. I think it's supposed to be a retelling of something. I don't really remember what, but I've heard people talk about this for years, especially when Naomi Novik's second book, Spinning Silver, came out last year, and I've heard mostly good things about it. It's been a book that I've been interested in reading because I want to get a little more into adult fantasy, and I've heard this one is a really good place to kind of start. So since I haven't read a ton of adult fantasy yet, I wanted to go ahead and pick it up since it was pretty cheap. Next is a book I got at Target, and that is To Make Monsters Out of Girls by Amanda Lovelace. This is one of her new poetry collections, and I think it's a new first book in a series of poetry collections of hers. But I got the Target exclusive because I love the red on the outside. I think the regular one is black. So I went ahead and picked that up on one of my many Target runs. The next several books are books that I either bought for SIA Book Fest or at SIA Book Fest. So SIA Book Fest is the Southeastern Young Adult Book Festival that is in Murfreesboro, Tennessee every year, and I wasn't able to go last year, but I got to go this year. I'm super excited because it had been 2 years since I'd been, and there are a lot of authors that come to sign books. So there were a few books I bought before the event because I knew that I wanted to get them signed. And then there were books that I bought at the event as well because I wanted to buy something while I was there to support it. So the next 4 books are from that. The first one of those is The Blood Spell by C.J. Redwine. This is the 4th book in her Ravenspire series, which is a series of different retellings. They all kind of stand on their own, but they're all set in the same world. So this one is the 4th book. It's a retelling of Cinderella. I've read the first 3. I really loved them all. I really like how creepy and gruesome they get. So I'm excited to read this one just like I was the other ones. These books have the most gorgeous maps in them. They always change the color to match the cover of the book. And of course, I got it signed. So really looking forward to reading this one soon. I also have 4321 by Courtney Stevens. Courtney Stevens is one of my favorite contemporary authors. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to attend SIA like originally planned, which is totally fine. Courtney's a local author here in Nashville, so I know that eventually I'll run into her at some other event, or she'll have a book signing or something, and I'll get it signed then. But I did buy this in anticipation of the event. I haven't read it yet, but I'm really looking forward to it because, like I said, I really love Courtney's books. So I think this has something to do with a bus crash or a bus explosion or something, and some of the survivors of that. I don't know, sounds intense. The next 2 books I bought at SIA because I didn't realize that Renae Watson was going to be there, and she's an author that I've been wanting to get into. So I bought a couple of her books. I got Piecing Me Together, and I've heard people talk about this before and say that it's really good, and there is where she signed it. So I have this one, and then I also got her newest one, which she co-wrote with Ellen Hagen, called Watch Us Rise, which again I've heard a few people talk about and say it's really, really good. I think this one has to do with 2 high school girls that start some kind of feminist club or something. I don't really remember. They talked about it at the event. I just don't remember. It was a while ago. But that's where both of them signed it. And really excited to read some Renae Watson because she's an author I've been wanting to get into, but I've never read any of her books. Next, I have A Map of Days by Ransom Riggs, which is the 4th book in the Miss Peregrine's Peculiar Children series. I had not yet picked up a copy of this, even though I really liked the original trilogy. He's kind of expanding that trilogy a bit, but my friend Trina at Between Chapters was also at SIA, and she was giving away some of her books if any of us wanted them, and I decided to bring this one home with me since I hadn't bought it yet. So Thanks, Trina. The next one I have is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, because I love Taylor Jenkins Reid, and everybody and their mother has been reading this book, and for a good reason, because it's great, but I'm not gonna review it. That's for another video. When did I read this? In March. So if you want my thoughts on Daisy Jones and the Six, it's gonna be in my March wrap-up. But long story short, I loved it, and you should read this. The next book I have to haul is a book I've already read, but it's a book that I really liked, and I found it cheap at Books A Million on sale, so I decided to pick it up. And that is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, which is kind of like a classic YA novel. Excuse dogs. I read this back in high school, and I really enjoyed it. Of course, that was before I knew how terrible a person S.E. Hinton is, but this is a book that I would like to reread someday, and it was a book I really enjoyed at the time, so since it was on sale, I decided to go ahead and pick it up. Plus, it's the pretty 50th anniversary edition, so I was excited to add this to my shelves. The next book I have is the March Owl Crate pick, and that is Four Dead Queens by Astrid Schulte. This is a newer YA fantasy book that's come out. I have not read it, but it is the Owl Crate exclusive edition, which is very exciting. And of course, Owl Crate books always come signed by the author, which is exciting. So, planning on picking this one up eventually. The next book I have is one that I was so excited to get my copy of, and that is Water Runs Red by Jenna Claire. Jenna is another booktuber, which I'm sure you know who Jenna is over at Jenna Claire K. And she's awesome, and she's super sweet. As soon as the paperback edition of her poetry collection came available, I purchased it immediately and read it pretty quickly after. It was really good. Again, I believe I talked about this in my March wrap-up if you want my thoughts. But I saw Jenna not long after I bought it at a book event, and she signed it for me. So, thank you, Jenna. I loved your book. And actually, that book event where I saw Jenna was for Ashley Herring Blake at Parnassus for her new book, The Mighty Heart of Sunny St. James, which is a middle grade book. I have already read this. I have not talked about it in a wrap-up yet because I read it this past month. But it's really good. It's about this 12-year-old girl named Sunny St. James who is a heart transplant survivor, and so she decides that she wants to kind of rediscover herself now that she has this new organ inside her, and she befriends this girl named Quinn, and they go on this quest that was Sunny's idea to try and find a boy to kiss. And Sunny kind of starts to realize that she might actually have feelings for Quinn instead. Ashley Herring Blake is a bisexual author, and so this is a Known Voices book. I loved it. I'll talk about it in my next wrap-up. But I highly recommend it. While I was at that event, I purchased the only other Ashley Herring Blake book that I did not own, which is Suffer Love. This was her debut. I think this is her only book that's not queer. At least I don't believe this one is, but I love Ashley Herring Blake's writing, and I pretty much would read anything that she wrote, so I wanted to get this, that way I have all of her books, complete set, and that's where she signed it. I didn't show you Sunny St. James. Here's the signing in that one. The next book I have is The Mermaid's Voice Returns in this one by Amanda Lovelace. I've already talked about how much I love Amanda Lovelace, and this is the Target exclusive edition, as you can see, since I apparently forgot to take the sticker off, of the third book in the Women Are Some Kind of Magic trilogy, which is a trilogy that I really love. I haven't read this third one yet, but I'm really excited to, and I loved the Target edition since it had the mermaid tail on it. The regular one is just purple, but I'm looking forward to picking this up soon. The next three books are some books that I picked up at Barnes & Noble, the first of which is the Barnes & Noble exclusive collector's edition of A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab. The Shades of Magic trilogy is one of my favorite fantasy series of all time, so I've been collecting the collector's editions as they come out, but I really like the Barnes & Noble ones because they're different colors, whereas the regular collector's editions are just black, which is still cool, but I love the colors, and I mean, how can I resist the rose gold? Cool thing about these is they have like really cool artwork on the inside of the characters, and they also all come signed, which is really cool. So I was really excited to add this to my collection. I also picked up Restore Me by Tahira Mafi, which is the fourth book in the Shatter Me series. It's the first in the expansion of the original trilogy. I've been making my way through the Shatter Me books a little bit at a time, and since I recently, a few months ago, finished the third one, I decided to pick up the fourth one because I would like to jump into this soon, definitely sooner rather than later, since Defy Me came out, and I would like to be caught up by the time the new book comes out next year. So picked this up. And the next book I have from that same trip is Wild Card by Marie Lu. I actually was only going to buy 2 books because money, but this book was signed and I was there with my boyfriend and he knows how much I love signed books, so he bought it for me. I have not read this yet, but I just recently finished my reread of Warcross, so I'm planning on listening to this audiobook next. Actually, I have to start it probably tomorrow, so I will be reading it very soon and I hope it is as good as Warcross. The next 4 books are one of the most exciting purchases I made during this entire haul because I found them at McKays. They were all incredibly cheap and they're all books I've already read, but I needed to buy them and you'll find out why. That is the first 4 books in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas: The Assassin's Blade, Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, and Heir of Fire. The reason this is so exciting is because A, The Throne of Glass is one of my favorite series of all time, but I owned the first 4 books in paperback and the rest in hardcover. And it looked a little awkward on my shelves, but I didn't want to buy 4 like hardcover books just for aesthetics, because I mean these aren't cheap. These are like $17.99 a piece, but I found them at McKays for like $4, $6, $8. They ended up, the 4 of them together ended up costing me $25, which is like a book and a half. So I bought them and now I have the entire series in hardcover and they're beautiful and it makes me so happy. Next, I have a book that I purchased on Indie Bookstore Day, which was in April. I think it was at the end of April. And I wanted to go visit Parnassus on Indie Bookstore Day to support and see if they had anything good. And I ended up purchasing A Blade So Black by L.L. McKinney. This is a book I actually wanted to buy when I was at SIA because L.L. McKinney was there and she was really, really cool on all the panels that I saw her on. And I wanted to buy a copy of this book, but whenever I went to the bookstore at the event, they were sold out of them and I was really sad. But they had a signed copy at Parnassus, so I went ahead and picked that up. And I haven't read it yet, but I was really excited to find this there, especially since it was signed. So this is the retelling of Alice in Wonderland. I believe it's supposed to be kind of like a mix between Alice in Wonderland and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which sounds amazing. And I'm really excited to read it. Next, I have the April pick for Owlcrate, which is Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. Again, I haven't read this one yet either, but I think the Owlcrate edition looks really cool. The original one is like white and red, and I really like the black. So, plus it has a gorgeous spine. I don't know anything about this book. I'm gonna be totally honest, but it's beautiful. There's the signature. So excited to add this to my collection, especially since it's so pretty. Next, I have a couple more books from another McKays trip. Shocking, I know. The first one is The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White. This is a retelling of Frankenstein, but from Elizabeth's perspective, which sounds great. I really like Frankenstein, the original novel, and so I'm really excited to read this. I will probably save it for October and read it around Halloween. But as soon as I heard about this coming out, I was intrigued. So I finally decided to pick it up since I found it cheap. And on that same trip, I also picked up Tosh Hart's Tolstoy by Catherine Ormsby. This is a YA contemporary with an asexual main character who makes like a video adaptation of Anna Karenina, kind of like the Lizzie Bennet Diaries. And it sounds great. I've been really wanting to read this, so I'm glad that I was able to find a copy finally. Next, I have a book that I actually won in a Goodreads giveaway, which was shocking because I've never won anything in a Goodreads giveaway before. And that book is Star World by Audrey Colthurst and Paula Garner. I'm gonna be honest, I know nothing about this. I basically entered to win it because I really liked Audrey Colthurst's first book, A Fire and Stars, and so I want to read more by her. I have not read anything by Paula Garner, but I'm excited to read it anyway because why not? We're almost there, guys. We're almost there. The next book I have is one of my most anticipated books of the year. That is Again But Better by Christine Riccio, who is a booktuber. She's one of the probably most subscribed to booktubers on YouTube, and this is her book. It finally came out, and I don't know Christine, but I really like her videos, and it was kind of cool seeing the process of her writing this, so I'm looking forward to reading it. I have heard a few mixed things, but it does sound cute, so I am hoping to read it soon. And I know it's about a girl who studies abroad, her like freshman or sophomore year of college. And so as somebody who's studied abroad as well, I'm excited to read this and hopefully connect with it. The next book I have is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, which is another one of my most anticipated books of the year. This is an adult romance about the first son of the President of the United States and the Prince of England, and it's kind of an enemies to lovers story, which is a trope that I really like, and I've heard nothing but great things about this book, and I'm so excited to read it. The next book I have is I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver, which is their debut book as well. Mason Deaver is a non-binary author. I follow Mason on Twitter, so I've been kind of watching the process of them writing this book, and so I'm really excited to read it. I haven't read very many non-binary books, especially Own Voices ones, so I'm really looking forward to reading this. The next book I have is one that I found at Barnes & Noble, and that is The Near Witch by V.E. Schwab. This is one of her first books. It may be her debut. I'm not totally sure. But V.E. Schwab is my favorite author. She also goes by Victoria Schwab. And this is a book, like I said, it's one of her first ones, but it went out of print for a really long time, and they just recently brought it back. This is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, which I really like. I like the mustard gold color, and it's just a really, really pretty book. It has a map on the inside, and then this is what it looks like naked. So this is one of the only Victoria Schwab books that I did not own. So I'm really excited to not only read it, but have it in my collection. Speaking of Victoria Schwab, I went to Parnassus a couple days ago and picked up The Steel Prince Volume 1 by Victoria Schwab and illustrated by Andrea Olimpieri, colored by Enrica Aaron Angiolini, and letters by Rob Steen. This is basically a prequel to the Shades of Magic trilogy, and it's about King Maxim. I think as he's still a prince, he's about to come into power, and I've been really excited to read this pretty much since she announced that it was a thing. These came out in single comic issues first, and then this is the first volume of those comics. I think it's like 4 different comics, so I was really excited. I've been looking for this for a while, and every time I look for it in a store, they never have it. But they finally did at Parnassus, so I'm really excited to finally be able to read this. And the last book I have to haul is actually another book that I picked up at Parnassus, and that is Birthday by Meredith Russo. This is another new release, and Meredith Russo is actually going to be doing a book signing. By the time this video goes up, I will have already been to the book signing, so this is not signed yet, but it will be. And this is Meredith Russo's second book, I believe. I read If I Was Your Girl a couple of years ago and really, really enjoyed it. Meredith Russo is a trans author, and I really liked her first book, so I'm looking forward to reading this one as well. So that is it for my haul, my really, really big haul. Let me know down in the comments which books I should read first, and I will see you guys next time with another video.